So it's really important for us as a society to recognise the continuing connection to our land and our community of our First Nations people. That's what NAIDOC Week is all about. You know, we talk about reconciliation, we talk about sorry, all of those sorts of things come together for us as a community to recognise the true sense of being that the First Nations people of this nation have to this land that we call home. So it's really important for us to get on board this year, more than anything before, for always was, always will be. And one of the important things about the recognition of our First Nations people is that we cannot afford to let this culture die out. We cannot afford to let all of the things that mean First Nations people, Aboriginality in this land, die out. That means we've got to pay a lot of attention to languages, to the skill sets that have been developed over the years and passed down verbally. We've got to pay a lot of attention to young people.
Good morning everyone, welcome to NAIDOC Week. Firstly, let me just acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'm Jaime Ahwang, the manager of Mackay Children and Family Centre. I'm a Tepithigi woman from Old Marpoon and my maternal family are from the Torres Straits. This year the theme for NAIDOC is Always Was, Always Will Be. For me, it's about recognising and acknowledging that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are the traditional owners of the land on which we are today. It's around paying our respects and celebrating that we've survived as a culture, come through all settlement, through colonisation, through the legislations that have changed, and we've survived. Today it's about thriving, it's about building partnerships, about pulling on in our allies together with us on our journey going forward. It's about making Australia a great place, not just for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, but for all nations to come together. Through true reconciliation, we can make a better future for our children.
Binbig Aribiri Yajula. G'day today. My name is Philip Kemp. I'm a traditional custodian descendant for the Yubira people. This area where we gather today, Mackay City area. We're part of the greater Yuwi country, which encompasses the Mackay Regional Council area. Today we're recognising the NAIDOC 2020 theme, Always Was, Always Will Be. And it recognises and celebrates that First Nation people have occupied and cared for this continent for over 65,000 years. NAIDOC 2020 invites all Australians to embrace the ancient history of this country, a history that dates back thousands of generations. The Aboriginal people cared for this country for many thousands of years and lived on this continent, Australia, sometimes referred to as the driest continent on Earth. And the Aboriginal people wouldn't have survived on this continent if we didn't have laws in place that dictated how we managed and looked after the land. So I encourage all Australians to embrace this ancient history. It's a history for all Australians. Being mindful that European occupation has only been here for 250 years, so it's only a speck in the whole scheme of things of 65,000 years. So I invite everybody to recognise and celebrate the fact that Aboriginal people have been on this continent for 65,000 years and caring for the country.
I believe the way forward for our next generation is through education, through formal learning, through cultural learning from our elders. The only way that we're going to make a difference is by changing the world through educating everyone about what we've been through, where we are now and where we're heading to in the future.
One of the best things I think we've done over the past couple of years is the attempt to preserve local language. So last year we published a book for young people called The Hungry Caterpillar, and that was a translation from English into the local Yuwi language. And so it really encourages young people to sit down and learn some language to make sure it doesn't die out. And so that's the message, I think, for all young Indigenous people in our community, and indeed for all young people. You want to get to know the Indigenous language, but particularly for young Indigenous folk, if you sit down with your elders and you start to talk about your culture and where you've come from and your language, because the language was in danger of dying out and we can't afford to let that happen. Always was, always will be means that those are the sorts of things we've got to preserve. So I guess the message for young people in our Indigenous community today is do what you can to preserve your culture into the future.